I made a prospecting call today and I thought about you. Do you shy away from making prospecting calls because you're afraid you're going to embarrass yourself? Oh, I used to embarrass myself all the time. Hi, I'm Christine Harrington, the Savvy Sales Lady, your personal YouTube sales coach. Right after this, you're going to learn 5 strategies to effective prospecting phone calls. No more embarrassment. I don't know what your selling situation is, but I used to spend hours and hours of windshield time driving from appointment to appointment. Some weeks I would put on 1,500 miles in a week. And usually I use that drive time to make follow-up phone calls to prospects. And I stopped. And I'd like to suggest you stop too. Here's why. Be honest and ask yourself this question. This is what I had to come to grips with. Can you truly have an effective sales conversation, listening and responding while driving? How many times have you driven into a cell tower dead zone and got disconnected from your prospecting call? You scrambled to call back and you got his voicemail. Let's face it. When you're making prospecting calls while you're driving from appointment to appointment, your attention is divided between listening and responding and trying to stay on the road. Well, you may not be that bad, but I am. Here are 5 facts about making effective prospecting calls. Number 1, know the right time to call. This can be easily solved by asking the gatekeeper when Mr. Prospect's work hours are. Or if you have an uncooperative gatekeeper, call before she starts her day or he starts his day. Call before business hours or after business hours in order to avoid that gatekeeper. Chances are the business owner is coming in early and leaving late anyhow. Prepare. Stop the random phone calls. Stop winging it. Stop making calls on the fly. One way to increase your close rate and your sales is by scheduling time into your day to do prepared, scheduled phone calls. Here's another important tip. Wear a headset while calling. This is so important because it helps block out any of that background noise that may be going on. And it's a fact. It's an actual scientific fact that when your hands are free, your communication levels go up, and so do your skills because your hands are doing the talking for you, like I'm doing in this video. You can't do that when you're driving a car. If you're a road warrior like I used to be, schedule breaks during your day, pull aside and sit for 10 minutes and do your prepared follow-up calls. I want to warn you not to do these calls in a noisy restaurant because that can be distracting as well for you and the caller on the receiving end. And last, always be prepared to get voicemail. When you do, leave a brief, concise, well-rehearsed voice message. Do not wing voice messages either. Always prepare a compelling message and then practice so that it can become spontaneous and authentic when you get voicemail and you leave a message. I can't emphasize this enough. Now, what to do if the prospect calls you back while you're driving? Just tell him you're driving and you want to pull over so you can give him your full attention. Resist attempting to have the phone conversation while you continue driving. Let me remind you again, it's too distracting for you and the prospect to take and receive calls while you're driving. Now, from a safety perspective, I gotta say this. Here's a startling fact from the Boston Globe. About 1 in 4 drivers involved in a crash in recent months around the country were using a smartphone within 1 minute before the accident occurred, according to a new analysis of data from hundreds of thousands of drivers' phones. I'll put that link in the description section below so you can check that article out. Now, some of these facts may seem laughable, common sense to you, and they are. Yet, one of the most common comments I get when I teach how to have effective phone conversations is, "I know that, I just don't do it." It's so easy to overlook the obvious, isn't it? If you're still not convinced to stop calling while driving, think of it this way. This is a mindset shift. It may be easier for you to make that phone call when you're driving, but when you wing it, do it on the fly, or call unprepared, it's extremely obvious to the prospect that you're doing what's in your best interest and not his. Because if you truly have the prospect's best interest, you'll give him the attention, prepared focus, and respect he deserves. When giving phone calls the proper prepared focus, it elevates you from just a regular sales rep to a sales professional. And believe me, it's extremely obvious to the person you're calling on the other end. Here's an example of what I experienced by being on the receiving end. A few years ago, I was attending a webinar online, and it was about selling. I'm always the student. The organizer and host that was conducting the webinar, poorly I might add, while ordering a cup of coffee, a bagel, and chatting to his girlfriend. This was a famous sales guru that I'm sure if I told you his name, you'd recognize it easily. The background noise on his end was extremely distracting. You could hear all the noise going on from the restaurant. Not to mention, he would lose his train of thought and he was repeating himself because he was distracted. I lost total respect for the man because the indirect message was, he didn't care about my money, my time, and my attention. He just did what was good for him. So my friend, remember, every touch point in the sales process conveys a message. And before you make a touch point, whether it's a phone call, an email, ask yourself this: what message do I want to convey? Become disciplined about making prospecting phone calls more effective through planning and practice and preparing, and being free from distractions for the sake of the prospect. Put the obvious in this video to practice and stop embarrassing yourself from unplanned, unprepared phone calls. When you do, you'll have an increase in sales like I did. Now I have one last question. If you're a road warrior, would you leave your comments below on suggestions you can share with everyone so they can learn on how you fit in prospecting phone calls in your busy week? And if you like this video, would you give it a thumbs up? But more importantly, remember this: sales is a journey. It's not a quick trip around the block. I'll see you on the next video. Daddy, spread your wings and fly.